All right. Do I need the mic? Can you guys hear me? I don't want to feel like I'm yelling at you, but let me empty my pockets. I finally have pants with pockets, and so I put everything in them. The girls know what I'm talking about. The boys are like, and?
My skirt has pockets on the side of it.
I love an outfit with pockets. All right, well, our speaker is John Emmons. He's with Project Wilbur. He is running a few minutes late, so I just wanted to respect everyone's time, but also so much of what we do in the community is like, you're working in a very like siloed format, right? Like you're building, you're growing, don't have a lot of coworkers, and you don't really interact with a lot of people. So we put events like this on because we want people to feel comfortable to network and hopefully maybe even share best practices and maybe even learn something. So I would love to take a minute and just kind of have everybody introduce themselves. I'll start, but then I want to know, like, what are you building? And we do have some time, so go ahead and feel free to like explain your company, not just the name, but like why you're doing it and why you're doing it in Vegas, because I think that's also just a really important component for us to learn. So my name is Heather Brown. I'm the co-founder of StartUp Vegas. A couple years ago, I was building a startup, and I looked to my co-founder and I was like, I've never been the COO of a company that never existed before. What the fuck am I doing? I was just being honest, right? Because in the moment, I thought there were so many what ifs, so many things I didn't know. And so he casually was like, well, I can send you to Silicon Valley, you can go to Austin, we can even send you over to Silicon Slopes and you can, attend a program there. And I was like, there are 2.4 million people who live in Las Vegas. How do we not have our own program? So him and I actually created StartUp Vegas just to kind of open these opportunities, and because we didn't think people needed to get on a plane in order to network and just grow and learn. So today, we exited from our company, the first company and the second company and now I work in economic development, and I'm an elected official here in town. So I still have my, interest in StartUp Vegas. This is still my baby. I still want it to grow, but it is very much about the community and not about Peter and I who started it. And so just really excited to be here with you guys. Would you like the mic?
No, I can speak loud.
Okay. I'll pass the mic to people who want.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Willis. I recently launched a technology advisory LLC here in Vegas. Specialty is around digital and IT strategies, IT capability improvements, all of that sort of thing that, from a technology perspective, really supports business objectives and gets businesses where they want to be, really, in terms of their development and growth and using their technology to the maximum advantage. So I've recently launched that here in Vegas. Heather's question, why in Vegas? My wife and I have relocated here from the United Kingdom just a couple of years ago, and I've been working for management consultant firms in the technology space for many years now, and I thought, why not branch it on my own? So I'm seeing how things go, and Vegas is our home at the moment, and we don't plan on going anywhere for a while. So nice to be part of this community.
Amazing.
Hey everyone, my name is Mike. Mike. I own a startup as well as another company, and I'll tell you about both. My startup is Otsy, O-T-S-Y. It's in the App Store. We're sort of a TikTok meets Expedia. So we're a social media travel app. We have over 300,000 experiences. We're in 170 countries. We launched about 90 days ago. We have about 10,000 users on the platform. And what we do specifically is we monetize all of the travel content on Instagram and TikTok. So users can take their travel content, upload it to our platform, attach it directly to the experience, and every single time it gets booked in perpetuity, we pay you 50% of the booking commissions. So we have a great sort of user base of 1,200 creators that have signed up to the platform. We have thousands of pieces of content. And sort of plugging away at that, we are in the process of closing our, we have a large seed round, $5 million seed round via SAFE at a $35 million post money value cap, which is egregious to a lot of people, but we sort of have a Rolls Royce of MVPs. One might say overbuilt, but you're welcome to download it. It's in the App Store and try it out. And then I also have another company called Scared to Scale. I am an angel investor, and I want to invest in startups here in Las Vegas. And so with Scared to Scale, we're a mentorship program, which I give access to our CTOs, COOs, sort of all of our C-suites. And they've come from Meta, they've come from Amazon, Kayak, and a lot of other great places. And I have a $250,000 fund. And on scaredtoscale.com, if you submit your pitch, we do quarterly pitch events, and we fund. They're micro investments. They're about $10,000, but they're at the idea phase now. If you're further beyond that, we would obviously look at that. But we're trying to help jumpstart this wonderful community. I've been in Vegas for 17 years, and I'd like to see it flourish. I'm trying to attract top talent and get the right people involved, because they are here. There's a lot of autonomous car companies. There's DraftKings. There's a lot of talent here. They're just not coming out to all the events. So I'm trying to help jumpstart that. So even after this event, if you've got something cool, come by and say hello.
Question is,
Sure.
Is your startup, is it agnostic to the location? So I could travel to Myanmar and make a video and.
So yeah, you'd have to, the only part that's locked is you'd have to be connected to the US App Store to download it.
Yeah.
So you have to obviously roll out into every single app store in every country with every language. But yeah, you can book and travel into 170 countries right now.
That's awesome. Very cool. It's a really unique way for travel, because I feel like you see a lot, and you want, as someone who loves to travel, it's always like, where do I start? So that sounds really cool.
Yeah, the idea is like relevancy, right? So it's like when I look at Yelp, right? I love Yelp; it's a great product, TripAdvisor, but I don't know who the people are. So I don't know how relevant the reviews are to me. If you're traveling with your young children versus a honeymoon versus you just retired, the travel becomes very different. So we have an advanced machine learning algorithm. All of our categories are spooled with artificial intelligence. And the idea is to connect you to your tribe, people just like yourselves.
Sounds good. We're rocking and rolling.
Cool. Okay. My name is Mariah. I work with Mike. I am the VP of Finance at Otsy. I'm from Vegas, born and raised. Went to UNLV, got my MBA there, got my CMA. This guy scooped me up while I was still getting my MBA, so I've been working with him or for him for 8 years now. And yeah, you've already heard all about Otsy, so appreciate that.
Happy to
Make
have
my
you.
job a little easier.
Hello everyone, my name is Manuel. I came here to do the workshop a couple months ago that we had, and that was fascinating for me. It's my first time being involved with this type of experience regarding software and startups. And so, yeah, I'm very new to this world, and I just want to soak up as much as I can and just learn how everything works. So, yeah, just learning.
Okay, my name is Fernando. Fernando Poldi. I'm from Argentina. I have a game studio. We develop games for the gambling industry, right? Bingo, Keno, slot games, loteria games. As well, I have another company that we do EI development. And right now, something that we are really focused, as I know that this is kind of a startup kind of scenario, we're really focused on creating workflows to speed up all the process of creating gambling games, like casino games, mostly online ones. For example, our successful story is that we changed our whole workflow for a couple of studios that they were spending 3-4 months to create these games to only a week and a half, right? Of course, creating, like, right? We created EI right now is pretty quick. The majority of that time is not only the art and of course the concept, is as well the documentation, because you need to get a lot of certifications, right, to launch these games, and Laurie is to certify these games. So all that, we created models, right, large language models trained for creating this kind of documentation. So yeah, mostly that. So thank you very much. I love this space. So, yeah.
Well, my name is Atik Sheikh. I have my own law firm here.
Well, my name is Arlene, and I actually from Austin, Texas, originally from California, and now we're opening up. We just got an office out here in Las Vegas as well. We're technology builders. When I say technology builders, my husband has been in the building or construction business. He helped build most of the hotels and casinos here in Las Vegas before Bellagio was even off the ground. And him living in Florida with all the natural disasters, it's crazy because we keep building the same houses that we've been building for the past 100 years, made out of wood and stick and pink insulation and things, and our homes are what's making us sick right now because you don't really know what's behind your sheetrock. So we manufacture a board that looks exactly like sheetrock. However, we took a piece of this board, we stuck it in a pool for 3 months, put a brick on top of it, lifted the brick, float it up, shake it dry, nail it to a wall. No mold, no mildew, no fungus, no VOCs. Then we took a torch to it for 8 hours and our board will not burn. On top of that, we did an impact test. So if something was flying in the air and it hit our walls, guess what? Up to 300 miles an hour, it will not. It might dent your wall, but it's not going to go through your wall. But in addition to it being waterproof, fireproof, hurricane, and tornado resistant, we also put technology in your home. We have a water purification system that creates hundreds of gallons of water from the air. And it is the cleanest, most amazing water that you're going to drink. Because right now, water is gold. We do not know what's going on with our public water system right now. Who knows what they're putting in there. On top of that, not only do we have water, we have electricity. We have an energy technology using earth magnets that'll pop up and spin a wind turbine for your home. So now you have no electric bills. You got free water, free electricity. Then we also have air scrubber from NASA, where when you walk into your home, you are breathing the cleanest air possible. No COVID, no viruses, asthma. You don't even have to spray your house with Lysol or anything, not even dust mites. So you're breathing the cleanest air. And then last but not least, we put in hydroponics because it's crazy that we're not growing our own vegetables and fruits and things like that. And my whole family's still in California, and they were like, a carton of eggs is $14. I'm like, a carton of eggs, $14? I'm like, well, why doesn't everybody just buy 2 chickens and a rooster? And I guarantee you, our ancestors are laughing. So we have a fertilizer that'll blow your mind. I've got pictures of it. We've got countries calling us right now. Our tomatoes are the size of a grapefruit. Our lettuce is 3 feet tall. And I don't even want to tell you what the marijuana plant looks like. It's like ginormous. I got pictures. And it's all natural. Our homes are all about sustainability and health and wellness. Think about it. It is our biggest expense. We buy our homes to protect our family. Yet what's happening and I don't even want to call it Mother Nature. I feel like they're intentionally, with all the weather and everything that's going on, I don't know, they call it the harp or whatever else they're calling it, but I just want to protect my family and make sure they're in the safest place. And so we are building homes all over the world. We've got contracts everywhere from Costa Rica, which we're actually, the president wants us to build 2 hotels, 2 casinos. They're giving us 60 acres. We're gonna build this little cul-de-sac of family and friends just in case all crap happens out here. We got, safe place to go. But we got Philippines where, we got places all over the world. But what's really exploding for us right now is the tiny homes. People are building these tiny homes between 300 to 1,500 square feet in their backyard. And in Texas, you can actually sell your backyard. I don't know if you knew that. So I still got to figure out how that works out here. But they're Airbnb-ing it, they're renting it out, or they're selling it. It's an extra, So I've got people that are buying land. They'll put 4 or 5 of these homes, and they'll sell 2 or 3, and then everything's paid off from the money. So that's one of the things we do, and we're involved in a lot of technology. We're involved in the banking system. We actually have the only sovereign metals bank here in the United States. And we actually brought it back to life, which means we are the only metals bank, which means we deal with gold. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'll talk to you guys later.
Very excited. Love all the projects.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Louise Randolph. I'm a nurse. I originally come from Los Angeles. I came out to Vegas to really become reinvigorated with my career. As we all know, in general nursing and in healthcare, there is quite a bit of burnout. And my goal with my company, which is Circuit Care, is to really bring back the connection between hospitals, payers, or insurance, and the patients. And what's going on is, what really inspired me was that my grandfather lives in Summerlin, and he had a health scare that we really, kind of as a family, had to alternate taking care of him. And I realized the biggest disconnect is between hospital, payer, and patient, and continuity of care. And so what I'm building is an EMR system, which is just a medical, electronic medical records, to be able to communicate between these 3 people, or these 3 entities. And so my biggest goal is to really be plugged into a community that cares. We can all say what we want to say about Los Angeles, but there's a lot of jaded attitude, and I think that just kind of trickles down into everything within healthcare. So I want to be in a community that actually cares. This situation right here is just awesome, just to hear people talk about their ideas, whatever industry you come from. I want to hear about it because I'm interested, because when we're all interested in care, then you start to see things move, you start to see what you really can do, not so much about the negative or the naysayers, but what really can happen, whether I, fully accept. The Career Center at UNLV to build out my proof of concept. I'm looking for investors as I build out and go on further, but I really just am been really happy just to be in Vegas. I feel like the new kid, but it's still really fun for me. So yeah, thank you for letting me speak and allowing me to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, un applause.
Sounds so important too.
Hi, I'm Bobby. I'm from England as well. I've been here just over a year. I used to be in events and marketing, personal development, events, wealth education, real estate. I moved to Vegas. I like the startup community because there's actually interesting people to talk to, listen to ideas, have intelligent conversations. And I work better in a team, so I'm just looking for somebody that I could add value to a team and be something that excites me as well. So I'm just here to meet cool people and see what turns up. Thank you.
Come a little closer. Good evening, everyone. My name's Martin. I'm a local freelance photojournalist. I've been in Las Vegas for 12 years now. Currently, I am developing a web and mobile app that's designed for contributors to be able to create and share short, personalized introduction videos that help facilitate meaningful connections and knowledge exchange. It's called Go Get Out, which is a metaphorical phrase that means to take a deep breath, allow yourself to be vulnerable, and then share something important or personal with others in hopes to be able to share knowledge from that.
That's great. Yeah.
I like that. Hi, my name is Alicia Mejia, and I support wonderful StartUp Vegas with events and things of that nature. I'm also a startup founder myself. I love your idea. Actually, what I'm working on is a platform of user-generated, location-based love stories that are on a mission to raise the vibration of love on the planet. And to your point of like sharing things that are make you scared or whatever, in the hopes of like educating and helping other people out, that's kind of the basis for this. We're collecting love stories from all around the world, but real stories of real people in love who've been through some shit, but still chose love in whatever capacity that happens to look like for them. In the hopes that by sharing these will help the rest of us sort of get back to the business of loving faster. So why Vegas? Because I went through the worst breakup of my life when I was working both in the wedding industry and for Tiffany's here in Vegas, and I think I love this city. I think like anything is possible here, and I have seen some of the most wonderful displays of love working in the wedding industry, and I just think it's just perfect content, and I love the startup community and would love to do anything to move everyone along for other.
Laptops?
Yeah, I got
Yeah, grateful to Heather and grateful to everybody for even having this for us to like come and meet.
So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Ben Lavsky. I have a marketing agency called Hunter Marketing. We're 11 years old. My business partner and I have been at it for a little while. We help with branding and strategy and growth for a variety of business types, including startups. And separate from that, this is my 25th year in Vegas. My partner is third generation, and we've started to develop some properties that help to hopefully contribute to a community. So sites that aggregate events and different groups in town. A lot of times when people come here, they don't know who does what, they don't find anything, or they find this piece but not this piece. General business.
Do you have a clicker? Wouldn't it be that thing? Maybe there's... Oh, here we go. What's this? need you. Do you mind? Just hit down. Cool. Is that a different clicker?
I'm just so happy from people who have been here 25 plus years to 25 plus days. It's really special to have an opportunity to meet you guys and listen to what you're doing. I think a couple people said it along the way, like, it is really cool to meet people where they are in the moment that they are, because, so much of your life came into what you're building, and so much of what who you'll meet is what will be next. And so hopefully through the different networks and stuff, and obviously check out Ben's website. He has a aggregated list of all the events, and if you want to know the ones specific to StartUp Vegas, they're on his event, or you can go to on his website, or you can go to our website. But yeah, it looks like John is getting all set up. Did anybody, I know this is a night of pivots, so I'm sure we've all had personal pivots, obviously business pivots. Who thinks that they've pivoted the most than anyone in this room? I'm just curious. Like, of all the things that you've done.
For this one?
This guy seems like
No.
he would.
Last computer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I often start by building things that no one asked for.
Well, this is his person. Now it's
And then you quickly realize that, and you get to figure that out.
I'm shutting all these windows. It might make it work.
That's why moving quick and,
That's fine.
and getting
We
feedback
can't figure
is
out
so
the next
important
15
in
seconds,
the life
and I'll just
cycle
be
of
your
startup.
Actually,
Because it's a long road, but if you build too much,
Here, look.
you also
It's
lose your
Try the
opportunity
USB
to make meaningful quick
because
pivots.
I'm sure this one
And
wasn't
even with
making
Odyssey,
sense. But if you plug that
that
directly into the
wasn't
computer,
going to be a social travel app. It was going to be like a hub of things.
you just can't click
So
back
you
with
can
the mouse.
connect all your travel stuff, and then people are like, I don't really want to do that. And I'm
Hold
like, oh, that's interesting. And so it's just like, you pitch and you get feedback, and you keep pitching, and you show
There you go.
friends and family, who are always the worst critics, by the way. They're usually not the most supportive. They will tell you your thing was
So-
shit first.
Just the normal click,
At
like the
least my family does.
Okay. Fun.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think like pivoting within small things I've always done, but I try to be very steadfast because it's a long, long journey.
Do you have a pivot story you want to share?
I'm good.
Well, I'm gonna walk away.
I saw that she was giving
I appreciate you guys letting me chat, and it was nice to learn more about you.
Hey, everybody. So is this thing working? You guys hear me okay? First, super sorry about being late. Family, kids, traffic, it's good times. So I'm one of the founders of Project Wilbur. We've done 61 million in funding that we've helped raise for external companies. We have raised about 80 million for our internal projects. I personally have been a part of 10 different startups, of which I've exited 5. So pivoting is a thing that I've been through multiple times, personally and professionally. All right, I'm going to stick with the button. All right. So, breakdown on me. I started out my career as a teacher. So I taught kids that got expelled from middle school, and obviously not in startups, not tech. Pivot, right? So I'm going to go through a couple of interesting examples, right? So there's business plan pivot, and then there's product pivot, right? So you can go to the next one. So basically, there's a lot of different signals, right? So you have market signals, but that's a pivot. Another fun pivot, which is a business plan pivot, is Airbnb. So everybody know the story about Airbnb and how they started? Nobody? All right. So they go into Andreessen Horowitz, and they were like, hey, all these conventions come in town. We need to figure out how to cut some of our costs because we're founders. So can we rent out our couch, right, or our extra room? And it wasn't like rent out a house at this point. It was rent out like the extra bed that's not being used in the room, because other founders would use them because they'd want to cut their costs down. That was the whole point of the beginning of Airbnb. Now, Andreessen and Horowitz, the partner that signed off on them, who, I don't know, do you guys know who Jeff Jordan is? No. Okay. Throwing a lot of names out. Bear with me. So Jeff Jordan was the guy that was the president of PayPal. So there was the PayPal Mafia. He came shortly after they started PayPal. He's been on 2 boards of 2 companies that I've been with in the executive team. Amazing human. But he also was the guy that pulled the trigger on Airbnb. Really, really cool guy. If you ever get a chance to pitch him, you will appreciate it because he's not like a shark. He's like Reid Hoffman will destroy you, and you will feel like, oh my God, did that just happen? Where are my pants? I don't know what just happened, but you know, and he's a really nice guy. Don't get me wrong, but he knows how to raise, or he knows how to grill you. But Jeff was awesome. So what Airbnb did, so their market pivot, so their like business plan, market pivot, like however you want to spin that, what they did is they ran out of money. And this is in 2008. And nobody really wanted to cut a check in 2008. Basically they were set with a problem. How do we not fire everybody? How do we create a solution that allows for us to stay open and continue to move and function and grow and build our client base? So has anybody heard of Obama O's? No? Or Captain McCain Crunch? That's right. So they launched the cereal boxes. It allowed for them to stay open. They raised $80,000 by selling $1,000 cereal boxes that they've rebranded. It's pretty clever. So a lot of that comes up with pivots, and execution of said pivot. Can you go to the next one? So what are the things that make you have to pivot? Anybody want to throw anything out? You don't have to, I'm just asking. All right, so, what's that?
Run out of money.
Yeah, well that's a given, right? So yes, that is an excellent one. Stagnant growth, so you're growing, but it's 2, 3, 4%, you're barely staying ahead of inflation, right? Like that's a problem. Customer feedback, you don't listen to it, right? So there's something that's really important to think about. There was one Steve Jobs. He's the only person that I remember effectively said, I'm going to tell you what you like because you don't know what I made, right? Most startups don't work that way. Market trends, missing the mark. There's startups that have launched way too early. There was, I'll give you an example. I was part of one. So Small Town, the first startup I did, the one that got me out of teaching, it was Groupon meets Facebook, meets Yelp, with the ability, before Yelp had this, to actually respond to all the reviews that you got. So we had the couponing, we had the, and we actually were the website builder. Like we had SEO built in, we were indexed. But this was in 06, and the site was Flash. And Jobs came out with the iPhone, and that led to us going, oh shit, we have to rebuild our platform. Because one of the few things that he said that was definitive when he announced the iPhone was, we'll never ever have Flash, ever. So we were like, crap, we have to rebuild the platform. So we started to raise, and then the market collapsed. Lehman Brothers went under, and we were like, oh no. Now we had destroyed Yelp from south of San Francisco all the way down to Palo Alto. Everybody was on Smalltown, smalltown.com. It was awesome. So we ended up selling to them because we didn't have any money. We ran out, and our $80K a month that we were making, or I think we got up to about 107, if I remember correctly, reoccurring revenue. Back then, but nobody was investing. So we read the market, and we exited, and we sold our client base to Yelp and our technology and our 4 excellent engineers. We didn't sell them. You can't sell people. Don't try to sell people. That's bad. So competition pressure. So this is a good one. When you guys are pitching, how many of you have ever heard of or actually said that I don't have competition? Anybody ever say that? No? Okay, as someone that vets startups and actually invests in startups, if somebody says to me, I don't have competition, it's usually a red flag. So just FYI, that's an important educational note. When you are not reading what competition is, like the holes that they have, it's important to point out there are competitors that can jump into what we're doing, but I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work, right? And I don't know how fast they're going to go in, but we're going to start moving down this path quickly. And if you don't see a signal, you need to start moving into a different direction, right? So these three last ones, team misalignment, burn rate, and burnout are probably the three most important. When you're going through team misalignment, like I think we should be doing this, and I'm a co-founder, and the other co-founder thinks, oh, we should go this path. Like I think we should be a SaaS platform. No, we got to do service because we have to get it figured out. That's a problem. It's okay to have different opinions, but you have to agree on the end goal, right? So when the team is bickering and not getting along, especially in a pitch session, which has happened to me, I don't know, I probably have heard like 1,500 pitches over my career. I would say at least 10% of them that's happened. So I would definitely work on making sure that if you're going to go and start a company and you want to build this up, or you're going to work with startups, that's probably one of the most important things. Burn rate. That should always be getting smaller, right? You should always figure out how to get the burn rate smaller. If it's getting bigger, then you need to reevaluate your business. That's a problem. And the other thing is you need to be able to step away because you will get burned out. It happens more often than not. And then all of a sudden you can't find a co-founder for 3 weeks. You're like, what just happened? Or they have a heart attack. I've had 2 co-founders. One quit for medical reasons. The other one actually died. So just FYI, this is all real. This all happens. If you haven't been through it, you will. Just be aware of it. Be thoughtful of it. Next. All right. So when you guys do market research, it's really important when you go through the demand of like what the customer wants, right? Each customer is going to have a different opinion as to what they want. Do you guys know the story about the Lions and LinkedIn? LinkedIn Lions? No? This is either I'm really old or there's not enough. Oh, you do? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I felt like really old for a second. All right, so Reid Hoffman talks about this a lot when he talks about the LinkedIn Lions, right? So when he launched LinkedIn, they had a group of power users. They called them the LinkedIn Lions, and they would dictate a lot of the feature sets. But it wasn't what everybody wanted. It was what they wanted, which is not what the masses wanted, and they were trying to be the platform or the Rolodex for all professionals, right? So they started paying attention and started to deviate the platform, and they noticed that the user adoption was dropping, right? So they had a meeting, they had they came together, and that he talks about this in one of his Masters of Scale, like the first season, I think, of Masters of Scale. He talks about how they noticed a dip, and it was because they were listening to the feature sets requested by the LinkedIn Lions. Now, people that are power users using your platform, whatever it is, it's good to listen to them, but you also have to evaluate, you have to weigh that in the hand of what do the masses want, right? Because if you're a scalable company, you got to focus on the masses. You can't focus on just the power users. Now, if the power users are bringing the masses, that's cool. Focus on that. You got to be able to scale it out. It has to make sense. So, and then you also have to break down financial models so you can actually anticipate when you're revealing new market opportunities. You got to pay attention to those. So, I was at another startup called Tilt. It was called Crowd Tilt originally. It was, do you guys know the Jobs Act? Do you know about crowdfunding? Okay, cool, thank you. Got one, awesome. So Jobs Act, was passed. It launched LinkedIn, it launched Indiegogo, and it also launched a couple of white label crowdfunding sites. One was Tilt, Crowd Tilt, where I headed up biz dev, and then there was another one called Celery, where I also headed up biz dev at different times. So Tilt did white label crowdfunding. We launched, we advised Coin, we launched Soylent, we launched NavD, like a bunch of hardware products, Lily Camera, so like $200 million worth of hardware products through reward-based crowdfunding on their own site so they didn't lose SEO, right? It was the only thing at Tilt that made money. And it wasn't the whole company. The company, they were trying to be Venmo meets Facebook meets, they won the crowdfund parties for CAGRs at fraternities and sororities. They were trying to figure out how to get to college students. They wanted to be the next Facebook, right? None of those things worked. The only thing that worked was the white label crowdfunding, which was great. That was the profitable division, which I helped run, which was cool. And the other thing that actually got them sold to Airbnb was the crowdfunding of concerts. Now this is like so classic when you're a startup and you're in a situation where you can't really see what's working and you don't want to pay attention to the thing that's giving you a half a point margin, which was what the crowdfunding was doing, right? We were really focused on the things that were like the shiny balls, right? So we did an event with Conan O'Brien, where he sold these little wooden emojis on the platform. And they weren't little, they were massive. They were the size of dinner plates. They were ridiculous. And we sold them for like $200 a piece. And we raised like $180,000 in one night. It was awesome for a nonprofit. But that was on the pitch deck, right? Not the thing that was making the money, which was the simple fintech modal that we built in a 2-weekend hackathon, which is, happens. So, and the company was sold almost for only $1 million over what was invested, I think, or $2 million over what was invested to Airbnb, because we figured out how to crowdfund concerts, and Airbnb wanted to do that. So they bought us because they had $1 billion in the bank. And they were also an Andreessen investment. So we were both Andreessen investments, and both of us were Y Combinator guys. So, all right, what's the next one? All right, evaluating business performance. Okay. What do you guys think the most important thing to an investor is? Sure, it's not the most. All right, when I look at a pitch deck or I'm looking at anything, the number one thing I'm looking for is traction, which is sales. If I see sales, I pay more attention. If I don't see sales, then I look for one more thing. I look for IP or some sort of defensible IP. And the third thing I look for, has the team provided an exit or a return for investors before? Those are the three. Everything should bubble up to those three things, right? So when you're looking at sales data, right, you want to figure out, are they increasing or decreasing based on your ROI, as you just stated, which was very good, or are they plateauing? Y Combinator has an excellent program around this. It's, can't remember the numbers, but it's basically you increase your price, I think it's 8 or 9% a week. And when you see that your growth has started to dip off over, I think it's 15%, then you've hit your product market pricing fit. So you need to go back to right before it started to dip off over 15. Yes? Y Combinator. So they have a whole course on price market fit, I think. Product market fit pricing. That's what it is. Product market fit pricing. So, and you can just type in that, type that in, and then do a search on Y Combinator, and it should be actually on their internal search engine. Who knows what CAC is? Customer acquisition cost. Who knows what that means specifically? Yeah. Right. Exactly. So there's two versions of that. One, there's the all-in cost. Staff, people, everybody involved, plus ad spend. And then there's just ad spend, right? Everybody quotes ad spend. They forget about how much it costs for the rest of the team to be part of that equation. So try to know both. And if you don't know both, make sure you know one of them. Because definitely knowing what you're spending to get a customer is super important. User engagement. So There's a platform that I evaluated and I really was bullish on, and I thought I could fix them, and we put little money into them. They had 400,000 users, and they didn't have a very high user retention rate. And when I met with the founders, which, by the way, they were coachable, which is a huge, important thing whenever we're investing. A coachable founder is a founder that can pivot. A coachable founder is a founder that will listen. Now, that doesn't mean that they do what you tell them. That's wrong. That's a wrong assumption. They have to be able to listen, absorb, and make a decision, right? Also, when I say they can pivot, it means that they'll listen to other people like, hey, this isn't working, right? We need to sit down and talk about this. They could be an employee, it could be a fellow co-founder, it could be an investor, but they need to be able to rationally listen to the conversation for someone that's actually spent time to figure out what the problem might be. So, where was I going with this? Customer acquisition, talked about. Right, 400,000, thank you, 400,000 users. So, it's hard to teach and then tell stories at the same time, I apologize. So 400,000 users, I tried to get him to do 2 or 3 different tweaks. And then we also created a reciprocal referral based on the membership for them bringing people in. Some of it worked, some of it didn't work. And basically, we stayed stagnant. We didn't grow. And when it didn't grow, a couple of things happened. COVID happened, and this was an outdoor event thing. So that's a problem, right? So they started to adapt and they tried to repivot, and each time they tried to repivot, they burned through more cash, right? One thing they did do, and that led to another company being StartUp, is they built an LMS system, which allowed for them to create, LMS is learning management system, if you didn't know. They tried to create a system for homeschool. And that did work, and I believe they're still working on it, but it's not a venture investment. It's now a cash lifestyle business, which is interesting. They shut down the original one. We took the write-off. But it's interesting all the same, which also is the user engagement piece. So we can hit the next one now. All right. So customer feedback. These two are my favorite. There's lots of ways to do this. So surveys are really important. You got to talk to them. You should do this before you even launch the company, by the way. You should go out to everybody that you think is the ideal customer, and you should actually start gathering data. Because you don't want to go through a process of like, I'm going to go raise money, I have a thesis, I haven't talked to anybody ever, my mom said it was a good idea, right? Like, that's a fail. So when you're going through the customer interview process, you want to make sure that you're gathering as much information as you can so you can make an educated decision. Because you're doing a startup because it doesn't exist. You're solving a problem that you think is there because you believe it's there, right? Not because you see 10 other companies doing it, because it's not a startup, then that's just a company, right? Anybody? No? All right, cool, awesome, engagement. So we can go to the next one.
I got something I'll add to that.
Please.
So to even get back to that, what's really important is actually creating and visualizing the dashboards of the data in the first place. So, Jack Doherty with Twitter once equated sort of the failure of Twitter never becoming profitable to not having actual real user data, and everyone sort of like determining what they thought the users wanted. And so then when he went over to Square, the first thing he did was build all these really great dashboards that track all that information. So that's sort of like an oversight when you're building, is like you have to build something that's actually visualizing all this stuff in the first place to even make any of these decisions. But the decision becomes really easy, like you're tracking churn and things like that. If there's like actual data, you make a tweak and let that run for a month and, try to pencil it out.
So I agree. For the internal team to start, you don't want to flood too much information to the user because I've seen that backfire. Because engineers in general tend to look at graphs and data and spreadsheets as, an important piece of everything they do. However, the average user, like, for example, my wife, you send her a spreadsheet, she's going to lose her mind, right? So there's that. Now, a marketer would be different. So it depends on, like, if it's the pro version and whatnot.
Yeah, internally to your own team.
Yeah.
making sort of decisions to move the startup forward.
Yeah.
Or pivoting, right?
Yeah, totally. That yes. For the internal team, 100%. For the external, for the user, I would measure the amount of data you're providing, right? Because, you know, Facebook, Meta, when it released the management tool that they had for Business Manager, the amount of data that they provided is appropriate for a marketer, right? But if they were to allow that on the website for your actual listing, for your personal web page, that's a bit extensive, right? So it's about finding the balance and releasing the right amount of information at the right time. Okay, does anybody know what a SWOT analysis is? Has anybody conducted one before? All right, sweet. I got some hands up this time. I like that. So whenever you're launching a company or a division of your company or you're doing anything of that nature, you need to be doing a SWOT analysis. And the threats part is actually the easiest one to figure out because it's everybody that could jump into the industry that you're doing. Almost always those are the easiest ones to point to. So if you're focused around the I don't have a competitor, it's usually that your competitor that you don't know about yet could jump into your business easily and start conquering you. You just have to be prepared as to how they're going to do that, right? Which also leads you to how to pivot away from whatever you're doing, because you need to be ready for plan A, which is what you're doing, plan B, which is your first pivot, plan C is your second pivot if the first one, I mean, it's chess, right? So you have to break these down into steps. When you're evaluating your external opportunities and threats, the first part where you identify your strengths and weaknesses, it's good to break down, all right, we know we're really good at X, right? How do we apply that in a scalable manner that allows us to overcome some of our weaknesses, overcome some of the issues that we're facing with these potential companies that can jump in and start to dominate us, right? So, for example, one of the companies, story, I was with Cafe Press. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. IPO'd in 2012. I was head of biz dev there. The couple of things that we targeted, and we didn't do great, is we had about 1.3 million artists that created content. We had 500,000 that were pretty active and made a living from it. They really supplemented their income. We thought it would make sense for us to drive traffic, this is before the IPO, drive traffic to our main page, cafepress.com. And any artist that sold product there would get a 10% commission instead of the average 35% commission that they would get, because we're driving the traffic, right? And they didn't have a tiered system where if they sold more stuff, they would get a higher percentage, which was a mistake. And we went from 1.3 million artists down to, I think it was like 700K in 2 weeks. They shut down their shops. This is actually what led to Zazzle getting started. So this is like in 08, 09. So I joined right when this was happening. And when I did, we were 70 employees. We were at $100 million a year. And what was really, really cool is we hadn't done anything in the B2B space. So we had this problem where the revenue was dipping. And we hadn't done anything in the B2B space. And we had a factory. It was in Louisville, Kentucky. We had just opened it. It was huge. So I built a catalog on all the products that we had. And I launched a wholesale division at Cafe Press. I ended up hiring 15 people. And we pivoted. The whole company didn't pivot, but I built a $60 million channel there doing this, where we were selling to the ASI and PPAI space for promotional products, because we built a factory and we should sell product, right? It's pretty cool. So that was a healthy pivot, and we maintained what we had. And then a lot of the designers came back, artists came back to continue to create content for their stores. And we started scaling because we started bringing them partnerships with like Marvel and Disney and Paramount. And you could do a Top Gun shirt because we had the rights, because we created what's called a fan portal, a new thing, again. And this helped us ramp to a $300 million company, which is when we IPO'd, which is pretty cool. So, but a series of pivots led to an adapting to the issues that we were faced, right? Yeah. You should do it often. Like, I mean, you don't know who's coming in, so I mentioned Tilt and Celery before on the Reg CF side where we did the Celery came after Tilt launched, and I lost One Wheel to them. I was really pissed about that because I met with the guys from One Wheel a bunch of times, really wanted the One Wheel account, rode the thing up and down Market Street, thought it was super fun. Obviously I was a little smaller then. And, I was mad because I was like, where did you guys launch? Because I saw it and it was on their page, and Celery and Tilt didn't brand their modals, right? So we didn't have that. They're like, oh, we launched with the guys over at Celery. And I was like, what? What the hell are you talking about? And we lost them. And when that happened, I was like, who's looking at the competitors right now? And they're like, I don't know. Nobody on the team, on the executive team was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So we built a 4-hour, once every 2 weeks, researched the space, made sure we knew what we were doing as far as who we were up against. So it was really important to make sure that we had that. And at Cafe Press, we would order from all the competitors once a month, make sure that our product was still better. So the answer is, I would say at least once a month, once every 2 weeks if you're an emerging market. So that's the breakdown, my advice. The strategies is just the plan A, plan B, plan C. You got to figure out where to focus and where the holes are. Go ahead. All right. So I went over some of the product pivot stuff. One of these, Southwest just announced that they're changing how they're boarding. You guys hear about that? Yeah, they're doing you don't wait with your number anymore. It's going to be you get an assigned seat. They did like a series of surveys over 5 years, and that's pretty much the gist, except for the last people that want to keep the economy. I think they're going to get all the middle seats, right? So that's kind of what's happening. So that's a product pivot. That's no bueno. Not all the time is that a good idea, and sometimes it's a huge mistake. There's a great book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. Have you guys read that? Anybody read that? Okay, cool. A few of you. If you haven't read it and you want to run a company, it is probably the most important book I can recommend. Besides his other book, which is Great by Choice. Both those books are super important if you're going to run a company, specifically a startup. So, market pivot's interesting. Anybody know an example of a market pivot? The Instagram one I gave you before is a market pivot. I mean, it's also a product pivot, but they went from video games to social media. Like they went completely outside of where they were. ClickUp's a good one too.
Yeah, they were a social media platform, and they actually built their own CRM system in the background to help them. The social media platform completely failed, and they launched their literally their own internal CRM. They spun it up, and now they're hundreds of millions, I guess now.
Yeah. What's up? Yep. No, PayPal's a good one. PayPal never got to where Peter Thiel and Musk wanted it to go, which was the one that created a new digital currency, which is now the crypto space, which is why they're both all about that. But it's interesting. There's actually an interview again, Reid Hoffman, because he had a podcast and I listened to it pretty religiously for the first year. I think they jumped the shark, so I don't know how good it is now, but it's not good. It's okay. Okay, but you've heard the first year, right? The first season. So the first season, the reason why this is compelling is he goes into how Peter and Musk both grilled him, are you at the right company? Because you don't believe in our mission, which is to create a new currency, to get rid of fiat. And he was like, sure, that's a good goal, but that's not happening in my lifetime. And kind of isn't, right? I mean, I don't think the US dollar is going to go away in the next 20 years, which would be his lifetime probably. I think he's like 10, 15 years older than me. So in that bucket, maybe. I could be wrong. Maybe he's younger than I thought. Anyway, so these are all important points. There's a lot of use cases for all of these. You can even just do a search on Google. What are the top pivots that are worth noticing within startups? The Airbnb one is an interesting way that they kept everything alive. They also pivoted completely from renting a couch and a bed to renting out a house. Some of them, I think they could still do a bedroom, like a co-hab space. I haven't used it in a long time.
They're going back to the basics because of
Yeah.
sort of a recession and the platform fees are high. And
Right.
So now they're going back to like individual bedroom rentals.
They're interestingly enough, I found out that they're losing market share to Vrbo, the VRBO guys, which
And they were around before then.
right.
By 5 to 10 years.
Well, they consolidated with 3 other firms, which is super interesting. But yes, they were around before them. What do we got next? All right, so everybody knows what a KPI is? All right, so goal setting, right? I mean, a KPI is basically your own arbitrary goal that you're trying to attain to. In sales, in a startup where we're doing a brand new market and we're doing testing, I always run a 2-week sprint, just like an engineering team. So you set it up like, hey, we have a thesis. This is who we're going after. We're going to start growing, and we're going to start targeting XYZ channel partner, right? You go for 2 weeks, and if you don't see a signal, move on to the next thesis. Move on to whatever the next assumption is. So you want to make sure that, like, you're not wasting your time on things that aren't scaling, right? If you don't see a signal, you don't want to like spin your wheels, which is also why you raise for 6 to 12 months at a time. You should always be telling everybody it's 6 to 12 months at a time to hit your KPIs, but always put in a 2 to 4 month buffer in with whatever you're doing, so that you guys have that broken down and you actually have the ability to pivot. On resource allocation, that breaks down the whole financial resources, human capital piece. But almost every startup struggles with one thing. They want to build a product, and they don't know how to sell it. And what you guys want to do is when you're figuring that out, you want to figure out the sales part is really just figuring out the demand, right? You have to find the need, the problem, and then start filling that. And whatever you think is filling it, if you're not selling it, then it's not the right problem to be solving. You have to adjust and adapt and pivot. The other thing to know, and I always ask this question, how long does it take to close a sale, right? If you are an enterprise platform, it should be anywhere from 6 to 18 months. That's pretty much standard. If you're a transactional platform where I'm selling a thing, then that should be no more than 2 touches, maybe 3. If you're doing a freemium product, you have to figure out what each user is worth based on the advertiser. So you have to be able to break these things down and figure out what the LTV is, which is your lifetime value of that customer, right? So the 2 numbers that I'm going to care the most about when you pitch is going to be customer acquisition cost and the lifetime value if you have revenue. Because that means if I give you $1 million and you're getting customers for $1, you should be able to get another 1 million customers, right? And then how long are they going to stay, and how long does it take for that customer to be paid off, right? All of that is all broken in those 2 metrics. Go to the next one. Okay, so I was at one startup where the communication, and I'm not going to give you a name, so because they went on to do something that was terrible. The communication was terrible. They tried to pivot twice. The CEO would never tell anybody anything. And there was no transparency. We didn't know what was happening. So at any given time, we all could lose our jobs, whatnot. And I'm on the executive team. I didn't know what was happening, right? So I was the chief strategy officer. I had no idea. Like, did we have money for the next 2 months? What was the revenue? I knew what I was responsible for. I didn't know what everybody else was doing. And I didn't stay there very long. But, you know, when you have a kid, you kind of stick it out as long as you can until you find another job, right? So I mentioned before, 10 startups. This is one of the 5 learning experiences for me, right? And, you know, with communication, that more transparency or that you can provide as an executive, the more your team will trust you, right? Now, this doesn't mean, hey, we're going to run out of money in 3 months, so everybody should go look for a job, right? This means, hey, we're struggling. I'd hate to have to start downsizing. I need everybody to refocus and find a solution together, right? So there's different ways to approach every conversation. You just have to make sure you're transparent enough to where they don't feel like they're in the dark and they don't know what the sales numbers are and they're afraid for their life because they don't know what's happening, because that always shuts down a company. I've never seen that work. And in fact, the one that I'm talking about, the investors came in and took over the company and the CEO was fired at a board meeting, which caused drama. Okay, so external communication, investor relations. When you report to an investor, is it important to be transparent? Is it yes? Yeah, I see some nodding. Okay, all right. So why do you want to be transparent? Is it because you feel like everything's going great, or do you think that they're helpful when things are going sideways? So here's why sideways helps. When you talk to an investor and they think that everything's rosy all the time, they start to think that you're lying to them. Unless you're bringing them buckets of cash, like, hey, we're going to pay you back next month because we made so much money. It's so great, right? When you're transparent about the problems, remember, they made enough money to invest in you. Most likely they've been through some of the crap that you're going through. So you want to lean on them, right? You don't want to go to them all the time. I mean, take advantage of the time that you have with them. The once a month conversation, here's what's going well, here's what's not going well. Everybody know Scrum? Okay, so cool thing about Scrum, what's 2 things going well, 2 things not going well? What am I excited about today? All that stuff. That is super important, even with an investor. I do weekly calls with many of the startups that we're partners with. The ones that I advise, I'm advising 9 right now as just an advisor. We have 45 minutes once a month, right? And I go, cool, you gave me the update, things are going well, that's awesome, happy for that. Here's some tweaks that I would do. What's going poorly, right? And if they don't provide me with anything that's going poorly, I start asking about like things like morale. What's your turnover been? What issues with your contract have you found with customers? Things like that. I don't know if I mentioned this before, or I know Heather's heard me talk about this before. I had a co-founder pass away, right? So when that happened, I had no idea how to solve the operating agreement issue, which was their spouse owned their equity. I didn't have a death clause in there because this is like 10 years ago, and I didn't know any better, right? So I had to figure out a way to make them whole, right? Because she still hadn't invested everything. And then at the same time, I had to figure out how to continue to move forward because she was responsible for a huge chunk of the company, right? So I had to find a new late-stage co-founder and figure out how to spin that up. These are all things that are unforeseen and sometimes lead to an entire pivot, which we did. We pivoted from a wholesale clothing company to a print-on-demand. Instead of importing things, we were print-on-demand, like a solution based on trending content. Totally not what we were trying to do. But the new co-founder brought that solution to me. All right. Cool. I think that's good for that slide. We can go to the next one. All right. So project management, team roles, action plans, execution. So you realize that your path is not working. You're frustrated. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm irritated. Like everything's not working. So you come up with your plan of attack, right? You need to map it out. It doesn't need to be like all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. You need to start figuring out whether it's going to scale and work by start talking to your existing customers or your potential customers saying, hey, if I tweak this thing that I made, will this be more appealing, and what would you pay for that? That last part, what would you pay for that, is probably the most important piece, right? Hit the next one. All right, so we talked a lot about this, KPIs, tracking your progress. Minor, major adjustments are important. That book that I mentioned, it was Good to Great, and the other one was Great by Choice. Great by Choice talks about rifle shots and cannonballs. Anybody read that book? No. All right, go. Jim Collins wrote the book. Read the book. Cannonballs are where you pivot the entire company at the same time, and nobody's doing anything else, and you're starting to change the direction of the entire company without testing it first. There's a series of what's the leaning thing? What's it called? The scooter that you lean on? Segway. Segway did that when they launched, right? They thought they knew who would buy the product. They leaned into it fully, and they almost went bankrupt because of it. And that's a cannonball attack. When you're looking at a company that failed, that was like surprising that they're failing, most of the time it's because they put all their resources into a basket that's not the right path. That's why the rifle shot's important. So this book that I mentioned, Great by Choice, it has hundreds of examples of these. And when you read it, like there's an example how Walgreens and CVS overcame each other. And it was because of this entire focus. I can't remember the exact example, but it's in the book. You should read the book. Super important book. So minor, major. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. I love it. Next. All right. So I mentioned this a little bit before when LinkedIn was focused on the LinkedIn Lions, right? They started doing what the Lions wanted, and then that led to a drop in users. That's probably the biggest problem in any social platform, is they start listening to a small niche, and then that leads to an issue as far as adaptation. By the way, if anybody's a social, wants to launch a social platform, the number one goal with that would be, my opinion, don't throttle back their ability to reach their followers. That's usually the fastest way to scale and the fastest way to get people off your platform. So, anyway, so misallocation. So this is actually, there's two sides of this, right? You always want to hire the right people to do the job. The other thing that is constant is the right people are very, very expensive. So when you hire the right people, it can be a problem, right? You pay too much, you burn through your cash too fast, it's a problem. The very first startup that I raised for myself, we raised $250K, and I knew someone that was phenomenal. They had done hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, managing e-commerce. We were working on a platform, and I wanted them to do it on equity, and our thesis was wrong as to how people were going to purchase. And they didn't. We didn't do an equity split, and I didn't set it up on a performance-based rev share. And basically, we burned through a bunch of cash, and we had to raise again. Super common. Just stay on top of the cash burn. It's super important. On the brand identity, so my partner who couldn't make it tonight, another kid thing. School started, by the way, this week. I don't know if you guys know. We all have little kids, all my team, and they had to deal with that. So I don't think brand identity is important, as important as he does, and I'll tell you why. You can pivot your brand. You pivot your logos. It doesn't usually epically change everything unless you've got a household name, unless you're FedEx or you're, I don't know, Airbnb, right? But now, not Airbnb 12 years ago, right? So within the first 2 years, you're going to pivot a lot of things. You're going to say, oh, well, if I tweak this knob, I'm going to get more customers because of XYZ reason. If your name is affecting your growth, well, then you just change the name, right? And you become a subsidiary, or it becomes a subsidiary of the new co, right? Like, this is not a heavy lift. Simplicity is the most important thing, and always saying what you do if you can within the name. But other than that, the brand PR stuff, like, less. And then the PR or marketing firm, depending on what you're doing, they're your last play. If you're going to launch a product, the marketing firm and the PR play are very important, like a physical widget, right? Because you're launching it into the world and it didn't exist. If you're testing and tuning a product, just put a wall in, password protection, email, test the product with some users, get some betas, figure out what works, and then get the PR agency, right? If you're doing it on a thesis because you're inventing a new thing, right, and you want to launch it into the world because you have 20 years experience in making the thing, the widget, cool, hire a PR agency, do a product launch, do a pre-sale. But it's all dependent on where you're at. Hit the next one. All right, I'm done now. What questions do you guys have?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I often see sort of the opposite. I see, sort of first-time entrepreneurs and founders pivoting too much, where they don't stay the course, and they don't realize it takes 2, 3 years of education and tedious work, and they overbuild and they add. And if I just had that one extra feature, if I just had that one thing, I've got a buddy that has one of the best CRMs in real estate that was ever built. He's got 57 features, and he's got $150,000 in revenue, and it's 7 years old. And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But he's still, to this day, building more features.
So I actually see that a lot. So that's actually why I suggested that we do this course, right? If you don't see a signal, you need to pivot, right? You need to change. You need to at least adjust. Even if it's not a full pivot, you gotta, like, how do I get a result, right? Which is why you want to do the KPIs, which is why you don't want to have 57 features, right? Because you want to have XYZ company have whatever result, and you can measure it, right? Because you don't know what you're doing unless you're measuring a result. You don't know if it's successful or not. So, good point. It seems to happen all the time.
Yeah, they sometimes just don't stay the course. And, it takes time to aggregate data and look at it. And, it's sort of hard to, like, make an aggregate decision on 2 weeks versus 6 months versus, a year.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. So, good point. So if I built a thing and I have a thesis that I could sell the thing, right? If I think I could sell it to a certain customer group or demographic, then I'm going to attempt probably this 2-week sprint that I just mentioned for about a 6-week period for option A, option B, option C. None of that works, then we built the wrong thing and we're completely wrong in who we're targeting, right? Because there should be a signal. Even if we're giving it away for free, like, here's 6 months free, and then after they start using it, will they actually pay for it, right? I don't know the answer. We got to test it, right? So, but overbuilding is a super common problem. Affiliate network. There was a company that I was helping that built an affiliate network in 2015, before it mattered, right? Nobody was paying attention to really affiliate networks in 2015. It wasn't a big thing. Influencers were still, like, doing e-commerce through their own page, driving traffic to a website for e-commerce. This wasn't like, hey, click my link to make some money, right? And this is like 2015 actually, so it's like almost 10 years ago. They were stuck to that, and they made $1,200 in a year, and the investor was completely burned out on it. So what the investor said was, I'm not going to fund it anymore. But they had contracts with all these influencers that had an audience. So they started selling, they had the influencers sell product, and they started making 50% margin instead of 6%. They started paying more attention. Influencers started pushing product. They started doing what's called capsule launches now, right? Where they would drop like 3 products. So this is a pivot, right? But they built this massive, awesome affiliate network platform. And they had burned through $9 million to do all this? Yeah. So sometimes there's a point where you're like, all right, what do we consider failure, right? Or where do we say, okay, cool, we're not going to go down this path anymore, right? That's important. You got to figure that out. You got to be able to like say, all right, what's the measurement of 0 for us to go change and adapt? You know, so good question though. You know, appreciate it. Anybody else? Yeah. Sure. So physical products would be patent, unique software. Can't really patent software. Not interested in patents on software. But a unique business model, patented business model, or business process. You patent the business process, not the model. Exclusivity contract. So like if I'm like, I don't know, there's national laboratories in the US, right? So if I'm at Livermore Labs, like the thing where you stand up and the thing spins around you at the airport, that came out of Livermore Labs. The guy that took it out, built it up into a company, sold it to LG, I believe, for $1.6 billion. So, like that's IP. So defensible IP. Something that nobody can actually steal from you because you have paperwork saying they can, right? Or another piece of defensible IP is I've got 400,000 users, right? I have people using my platform. That's interesting, right? Because they're using it. So that's good. But the three things that always point to is it's always the team first, especially seed or pre-seed or seed plus or even A. And team has to be cohesive. They can't be all over the place like we talked about before. The secondary is, traction, some level of traction. And then do I believe in your problem solution statement and whatnot, and IP. That's all good. Any other questions?
What do you see getting funded right now? Like what is Silicon Valley, venture, angels, what are they looking for in this market?
So AI, and I mean like everything, like AI compute's big. They're raising lots of money. CoreWeave 3 months ago just got $7 billion. The video game industry is starting to look interesting. All the content creation platforms are going to be interesting, meaning like video games, TV, whatnot, because they've had 3 droughts. They've had strikes multiple times. Since COVID, it hasn't been a consecutive year where they haven't been able to have 12 months of production. So a solution to that, like they're striking right now about AI for video games. You guys know about what's going on right now with that? So a solution to that would be interesting. What else is happening right now? Saw some power, water stuff, really interesting. They're getting funded a lot, especially power. I'm helping with a $55 million round right now, which is interesting. So I'd say like all of those are important. Impact investing. No, e-commerce is not big right now. Anything around enterprise for like, well actually let me back up. So if it's seed or pre-seed or seed plus but not a priced round, yes, that's happening. Everything across that space is being invested in currently. From private parties, angel investors, and VCs. So they're deploying capital and making bets on the future. On the later stage stuff, everything specific to AI or the verticals I just gave you. Plus, power is it's a big focus. The EVs that are out there are consuming a lot of the grid, and there's problems with being able to store power, to be able to produce power. So that's all being looked at right now. Yeah. Good question. Yeah.
What's the evolution of social networks?
Well, that's a hard question. In what way?
More meaningful connections.
I actually met with somebody today that is focused on experience over, just the hanging the shingle on a social site. That's interesting. What do I think the future is? I don't know. It's about time for another one to start coming in, as long as Meta doesn't buy it, which seems to be the case. I mean, Snapchat had a chance of unseating Meta, but then Instagram, their mobile just completely copied Snap. I don't know the answer to that right now. I've seen 50 social networks this year. 2 were interesting. I think, I'm not going to build this, so I don't really care, so I'm just going to tell you guys. I think the most interesting one is the one that solves the COPA and COPPA, right? So, anybody know what COPA and COPPA are? So there's a Children Online Privacy Protection Act, and there's the Children Privacy Act, right? Children Online Privacy Act. So COPA and COPPA. It's a regulated space. Disruption in a regulated space is super interesting. So when you're looking at, you have to be plugged into a safe harbor. If you're able to capture people that are K through 8 in that space and have it be ed tech related and engaging and compelling and provide value, that leads to a longer tail. Is this morally correct? I don't know. But I think that the reason why Facebook took off was because it captured all the college students, right? So I don't know, but I think that's going to be the space. So if you ask anybody that has money and they're not price sensitive, they're willing to pay a premium for an experience, right? That's interesting if you can figure out how to scale it. And then when I say scale it, I mean doing something for an individual that has money, it would be something that doesn't scale. Taking that and then recreating that into a thing that does scale is interesting. So that could be travel, it can be an event, it can be an organizer, it could be, I don't know, fill in the blank, right? I've seen a couple of different versions of this, and I don't want to give up their IP, but 2 of them are interesting. And one of them we might go in the DD with. So experience-based, it creates a connection. You can't do it, shouldn't do it alone. Most people don't. But you go do something with somebody, right? So that has a network effect built in, right? Yeah.
I have a question about competition. I'll start with an example. I used to work for a rocket company who made spaceships, to put satellites in orbit. And I asked the CEO during my interview, I said, hey, are we competing with, are we really competing with SpaceX? He goes, no. SpaceX is a rideshare model. They're sold out in 4 years. They put 100 satellites on a rocket and, launch it. Totally different market, right? I said, okay, what about Rocket Lab? He goes, that's like the Ferrari of rockets. They're bigger, higher cost per kilogram, totally different market. And then he goes, we're this super small, nimble launch company. If you want a satellite up tomorrow, we're going to be able to do that. But in the end, NASA had no problem giving our launch to Rocket Lab, to the competitor. But I totally bought this story that we're blue ocean, right? That these are totally separate market segments. I don't know if you did, but you've heard Peter Thiel say, competition is for losers, right? It's a very famous talk he did at Stanford. I think he wrote a book about it. So if I'm pitching you, what do you want to hear? Do you want to hear, I've done this market analysis, these people could compete with us? Or do you want to go, yeah, other people have rockets, but not our rockets. So other, the game industry, right? Other people have games, other people have social casino games, but they don't have our, rock star developers, our rock star CEO that has this record of success. How would you like to, see that as the lead pitching?
So if your CEO had pitched me just like that, I would have not gone in the DD. I would not have helped him raise or done anything like that. Whenever anybody says, well, they're doing their thing over there and we're doing something different. Everybody, look at cars, every auto industry, every auto manufacturer plays in every space. Now Tesla has a truck that's all-wheel drive, right? So now they're playing in every space. The X, I don't know if everybody knows this, it has a third row, right? So the Tesla X has a third row. So you actually, it's a frickin' minivan with wings, right? So like, I don't believe those statements. And the whole, like, we've got, I remember probably one of the best C-level guys I ever worked with said, we said two things. One is the reason why I took the job. He said, a daughter looks to their father to see the man they want to marry, and a son looks to their father to see the man they want to be. So I was like, I just learned something in the interview from you. I want to work here. Like, that's how that worked. He also had done amazing things. He's one of the guys that was responsible, or he was responsible for the Buy It Now button on Amazon, so that was pretty cool. But he also would go into pitches on the fundraising side and say, we've got like the best developers. They're like really like Cracker Jack, like the best, because Cracker Jack, that's his, I'm still getting him out on his age. And I always thought he was trying to use car salesman, the investors, a little too much on that, right? Awesome dude, follow him to the end of the earth, great sales guy, not how you should approach an investor, my opinion. Now, when you're pitching an investor, you do want to make sure that there is some salesness, but you want it to be as authentic as possible, right? And you also want to be transparent, like, here's the people that could come in. I think I can overcome that because of X, Y, and Z reason, right? So when I do a pitch, and this is what you guys should all do, my opinion, I like to see this. Your pitch should be like your pitch, so like problem, solution, team, market size, ask, all of that, 1 to 15 pages or slides. Everything past 15, and it could be shorter, 1 to 10 is fine, right? If you go with Guy Kowalski's model, it's 10, right? After 15, you build an appendix. The appendix is all the objections you think you're going to get, all the like ways you're going to overcome it, all the solutions you think you've come up with. And when you do that, when you build that out, an investor like me or somebody else is going to look at that and you're like, what about this? Oh, well, slide 36 covers that exactly. Let me show you how I thought about that. So it shows two things. One, you've thought about the solution to that problem and you have an answer for it. And if they disagree with you, cool, right? Mr. Investor, you're engaging, right? Sales is 80-20, right? You talk 20% of the time and then you shut up and you listen to the responses. It's the hardest thing for a salesperson to do. I get to talk as much as I want because I have a microphone and you don't. But if I was selling you something, I would be just telling you what it is, giving you the pitch I thought was relevant to you, and then I would listen to all of your objections and then give you short answers that were well thought out so that you would keep talking. Because you'll talk yourself into the sale. So will an investor. Yeah.
Well, I think there's like two things to that, right? So like in our deck, what comes right after the competition slide is our differentiator, right? So I think not everything needs a huge differentiator, right? Like there's such a thing called market share, and if there's an Uber, there'll be a Lyft. If there's, you know what I mean? So there's going to be other VCs that want to fund very similar things, just because other companies are also doing well in that space. But you know, your differentiator could be anything, the shape of your rockets, whatever, you know, whatever that you're doing that's specifically different than the others. And it doesn't have to be like sort of groundbreaking all the time. Sometimes it's just a little simple thing.
Right.
That's interesting.
One of the things that we do when we're pitching, or not pitching, sorry, start over. When I'm consulting with an investor and we're doing their DD for an investment they're going to do, on our contracts it says we do what we say we're going to do, and we said we were going to do it for what we said we were going to do it for. We run our company that way. So just it's stupid, and it's like old school, but it's important because if you run your company that way and you put it in writing, it's meaningful, right? So in the example of having an appendix and having all these different pieces where you're addressing all of these objections as you just stated, and you have a path, having something that's compelling and personalizes that relationship is something that helps make that move forward. So, yes?
So earlier, in response to a question
Yes. So did I kill this thing? Hello? I don't think you guys need it. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. So, it depends on the industry. So like okay, healthcare. So I want to know how you're going to address HIPAA compliance. And if you found a way to tokenize whatever information that's there, like how are you doing that? And like an answer to all of those steps. If you are completely disrupting something, have you done a legal opinion letter? If you haven't, why not? And if you're going down the path of, the data that's required to be compliant, not the data the compliance that's required with data. Yeah, that I'm going to want to know that stuff. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we do everything pretty much but healthcare. We've only done 4 vetting on healthcare. I know those things because I did a healthcare app for a client, and we made sure we were compliant. But that's the extent of my knowledge besides the FDA certification process for products. Yeah. But I want to see what you're thinking and why, and then any outside, external, third parties that have validated what you're saying.
So that's where the biggest thing right now has been for me, has been validation. Because again, like you said, HIPAA compliance, but the biggest thing is having a database. And so for me, I'm wanting to build an EMR system. So the core of that, or the housing of that, is just patient data. And where you go with that and how you build out, like you said, essentially you should be still regulating in the regulations of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of get creative, I say fun, build off of that. But as a nurse, like I do understand like the basics of, what they're looking for.
So your investor set, like the people you're going to go to, people in the medical field, doctors, other nurses, nurse practitioners. You're going to look at the medical VCs that are out there. Before I go to a VC, this is for everybody. Try not to go to a VC first. You want to go to an angel first. VCs, even the ones that are like super nice, the goal with a VC at pre-seed, seed, and Series A is 20 to 25%, 30% on the like at the max each time you raise. So if you're raising, their goal is to get 30%. Now it dilutes each time, so you're not going to be left with 10% of your company, but they're all coming in trying to get as close to 30 as possible. So just be cognizant of that. That's why the angels, convertible notes and safe documents for pre-seed and seed are the only time you can raise those. You can't do it outside of that. So I got time for like one more question.
I gotta add something to you over there. So on the EMRs, I invested in a couple wellness centers, and we run a couple EMRs. Specifically, we use Dr. Chrono. And so I would say like kind of one of the pain points, obviously that's expensive, but when we switched into that, it was because of API integration. It was integrating into the sales funnels, into the marketing
Thanks, man.
into the POS system.
Thanks. Appreciate
a lot
it.
of the other ones just didn't have that, so you couldn't run like sort of 360 degrees. Everything was very fragmented, so that's
where I meant by the fun part. So that's when, as you start to build out, you have your core system, but as you start to integrate other people, like you said, the POS system, different things like that, where the payers are going, where it is. So that's where also you see they get kind of bought out by the bigger guys, or they're like, oh, this seems like a nice system to integrate into, let's say, Optum or something like that. So yeah, that's where I'm trying to.
But that was sort of our choice, was what integrated into actual tools that let us pencil kind of CAC to LTV on all of the customers we were going after as well. So.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I don't know enough about the space. I appreciate
I
you.
just randomly happened to be in that space.
Yeah, it's awesome. Any other questions? No? Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys coming out. Thanks.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you guys. Feel free, we're going to be here for another 20 minutes or so. You can hang out longer if they want to. But there's still some beer, sandwiches, all the same stuff. See you guys next time.
Thanks for the help. need your mic back, right? Thanks for doing that, man.
No, thank you so much for speaking at StartUp today.
Yeah, no worries.
Question for you. When we were at that Millennium Fandom, whatever the hell you were talking about, that thing?
Oh, with the speed thing?